And welcome back to everyone's favorite pro wrestling debate show. It's Gripebombs, and today we are going to be determining what is the very best WWE Hell in a Cell match of all time. Luke Owen, you are our current champion. How do you feel about your competition today? Fair enough. So,
he's absolutely done it. Tweedledum and Tweedledee over here. What are you talking about? We're going to smash you, Luke. Yeah, I only got my picks in about half hour ago.
I thought about them for a couple of minutes.
Tweedledum and Tweedledummer.
So, before we get going proper, this episode is sponsored. It's sponsored by Smack Talk Showdown, the only party game where smack talking is not only encouraged, it's required. This is a very fun card game. I've played it before. A number of other people on the channel have also played it before, where you are given a wrestling character, a scenario, and a promo, and you have to battle once again against each other in verbal warfare. But don't just take it from us. Take it from the fine folks at Smack Talk Showdown themselves.
Introducing Smack Talk Showdown. Fulfill your dreams of becoming a professional wrestler. You and your friends adopt the most wild personas, give outrageous promos, and feel the burn as you tear into the mic and into your best friends with Smack Talk Showdown. This is the only party game where smack talking isn't just encouraged, it's required. Watch as friendships are tested, alliances are formed, and laughter is guaranteed. It's time to wrestle with words. Get ready for the ultimate smack-talking experience, Smack Talk Showdown. Let the smack-talking begin. Visit smacktalkshowdown.com, second edition available now.
Thank you very much again to the fine folks at Smack Talk Showdown. Make sure you go to the link in the description and in the live chat below to get your copy of the game, and make sure you use the code word GRIPE at checkout to get $5 off your entire order. We'll hear more about them a little bit later in the show, but until then, let's get into our first round, why don't we?
Let's go for it. I'm ready.
Luke's ready. Sullivan's ready. I don't know if Laurie's ready. No. We'll see. The first round, of course, it's the one on the thumbnail, given that CM Punk and Drew McIntyre are potentially about to have another potential candidate in this conversation. Gentlemen, what is the best Hell in a Cell match? Now, for anybody who is joining us for the first time, the way this is going to work is we have a lovely little debate period where each of our contestants gives their argument for their respective choices, and whoever has the best argument, not necessarily the choice that I agree with the most, but who provides the best argument for their choice, they're going to get a point at the end of the first round. At the second round, we will have another round with a different topic, where if the person who wins the first round does not win the second round, we will have two separate people, each with a point, and they will face off one-on-one in our third and final round. That round, of course, is a little bit different, where, as for the first two rounds, I am deciding the choices in my very unbiased and objective way, but after that, we will have our third member. I don't know why I pointed at Sullivan.
Yeah, I don't know
our third member of our crew and the audience are both going to be getting a respective vote alongside me. So everybody gets a say.
Gonna have a go.
Yeah, you know. We'll see.
We'll see if we have time. We might not.
Sullivan, what do you think? We haven't got time.
And I have been made aware that we currently are experiencing some audio issues. We've got our techs working on that behind the camera as well. That being said, Luke,
yes,
you are the defending champion.
Sure am.
This is WWE, where the champion enters first for some reason. Would you like to run us through your choice?
My choice for the best WWE Hell in a Cell match is the first WWE Hell in a Cell match from Bad Blood 1997 with Shawn Michaels and The Undertaker. So there's a lot of things going in for this that kind of help it become the best Hell in a Cell match of all time. A, it's the first one. B, it's incredibly iconic being the first one. C, it features two of the best to ever do it in Shawn and Taker. D, that's gotta be Kane. It features the debut, the big story they've been building for so many months. But I think there is more to it than just those four factors. It is also a match that brilliantly plays off the finish of SummerSlam 1997. They build so much of it around the steel chair, which is such a great way to structure a match that is inherently, it's dangerous. They're inside Hell in a Cell. I did go up on top of the cell. Shawn goes off the cell as well. It was a very big, spectacular bump, so it was. Cleverly so, because I think the cameraman gets bumped, and Sergeant Slaughter comes down to unlock the cage, which allows our guys to get out of it. So there's no huge gimmick of how they get out. They make sure that everyone is confined until, unfortunately, they open the door, and that is how they spill out, and that's how they get up on top. So there's all of this going for it. But for me, the big selling point of the first Hell in a Cell match, and the reason why I think it is the best one, is it gets over the stipulation of Hell in a Cell. The commentary play it so seriously of, these two men may never walk out of here. Crucially, what they say is, Shawn Michaels might never walk out of here because he's in the ring with The Undertaker inside this barbaric structure. We've never seen anything like this. And they put it over so hugely how dangerous a stipulation this can be, which I think is very much lost over time as it just becomes a big red box that people go into because it's October and that's when you do the pay-per-view. So there's a lot going in for this, and I really do think it is the best WWE Hell in a Cell match.
Very strong opening argument. We'll hear more from you in just a moment, but we'll continue down the line. Laurie Blake.
Hello.
Your choice for the best Hell in a Cell match there's ever been.
Now, I think when you talk about Hell in a Cell, there is a few names that tend to come up, and one of them is in Luke's pick, which is The Undertaker, who seems to be... The match seems to be tailor-made for this person. And the issue with Hell in a Cell, I think, for WWE has been they have struggled to make the match work outside of The Undertaker being involved, unless we are talking about this particular match, which is the Usos versus the New Day. A tag team Hell in a Cell match for two teams who were at the peak of their game in a division that nobody cared about. There was no right for this match to be as good as it was because the New Day and the Usos, well, I mean, there was no right for the New Day and the Usos to have as good a matches as they were having on all the pre-shows that they were having them on. This was a chance for them to go on an actual pay-per-view card, have an amazing match in a spectacular structure, and they used it to full advantage. They managed to still nail all the things that you would expect from their kind of feud. It upped the intensity in a really good way here. It felt like a kind of culmination, as this was, if the Usos don't win here on this kickback stipulation to win the tag belts back, they can't challenge again. It felt like it was an important moment, although, yes, this was a super, super mid-card feud. I think the other thing is it was just not many Hell in a Cell matches have managed to walk the line between to do other things outside of it just being brutal, outside of it just being full of fury. The New Day's match and the Usos, they managed to build in moments of comedy into this. There were lots of silly bits, and then this kind of feud overtook the thing and it became really barbaric. And they did a lot of really inventive new stuff with the Hell in a Cell. They did all the kendo stick stuff where they managed to trap the Usos in, and they played into it was some guys who were really on form, basically using this match and this opportunity to add to their arsenal of matches, because they'd taken other stipulations and they'd run with them. They'd done everything else outside of this structure, and it really felt like this structure was actually adding some new dimension to this feud between these two teams. They managed to find something else for them to do, which again, considering the number of matches they had at that time, was kind of incredible that they had managed to find another level. And that's why I really like this, and why I think it's probably the best Hell in a Cell match of all time, because it's remarkable because it shouldn't have been remarkable.
I think we do a reset. Sorry, boys.
All right.
If I have to do that all again,
I don't know what that means.
We're going to go down for a minute.
Okay, we're going to go down. We'll be right back.
And that's why The Undertaker versus Shawn Michaels is my pick for the best Hell in a Cell match of all time.
Right.
You made some good points about the Usos versus the New Day. I do think I have won this one.
Give him the points, Tempest.
I just might. Well, we will see how we are doing now. I am getting the current message Still not synced.
Oh, good,
Yeah,
good.
Still not synced.
Nice.
Right, the
nice.
tech team will continue to work on that.
Yes. I think it's all going really rather well.
I do too.
Yes.
Yeah.
But potentially it might be that our voices can sync up with each other's faces if we really try.
Oh.
How is it now?
How is it now? Is it fixed?
It'll take 20 seconds
Yeah,
before
we'll
they...
see.
Yes.
We'll never know.
Yeah,
Yes,
goodness.
it's hard to tell.
gracious.
And also that it's going to be confusing now because we tried to sync our faces up with other people's mouths.
Oh,
no.
So
God,
we've
like we were doing
confused
Kung
things.
Pao.
Yeah. Like we were an anime being redubbed.
Yeah.
Goodness gracious. What do we say? Nope.
Sad cry.
Sad cry.
Cry, sad.
Why has this happened?
We do.
I have no
It's not
idea.
the settings that we've had
don't know.
before.
I have no idea.
Mhm.
I have no idea.
And what setting would it be to change the sync of your
It's
voice?
because we ticked the out of sync button.
I love
Well,
that
there is
button.
usually a latent delay in these things, so there would be a couple of seconds, but we've accounted for that because you automatically add the delay to the audio to make it. So
I think
it's
that's
actually
close we're going to get, boys.
usually the video is behind the audio, so you delay the audio ever so slightly to make it in sync. But if the audio is now lagging behind the video, that's probably a latency issue.
Yeah. Any luck? No. That's close. Is as close as we're going to get usable.
I think we're plough on for now. I think that's
Okay.
pretty close.
Okay.
All right.
All right. Well, it's not ideal,
You're gonna
but
have a
technology
horrible-
is not our friend today.
The biggest gripe we have is with OBS.
Let's sort it out, OBS.
Yeah.
My gripe bomb.
Yeah.
But we will move forward
Some
because
showdown on it.
we do indeed have our first two arguments for the case of best Hell in a Cell match. But now we need to go to our third and final of those. Sullivan Bo Brown, tell us what your pick for the best Hell in a Cell match would be.
Now, there's a lot of good arguments to be made for the very first Hell in a Cell match, and indeed a very refreshing argument about New Day and the Usos. I thoroughly enjoyed both your arguments. But what I would say is that there is a perhaps, admittedly, basic answer, but it is the right answer. It is the match that defined Hell in a Cell. It's Undertaker versus Mankind. And the reason why is because it made it terrifying in a way that I think that if the first, if we'd had matches continually that were like Undertaker and Shawn Michaels for the rest of the Hell in a Cell sort of 90s into the Attitude Era sort of period, I think we would probably think of the Hell in a Cell as like the Elimination Chamber, how we view that right now, which is like, yeah, you can get some really good matches in there, and it's, it is quite intimidating as a structure, but the Mankind Undertaker match is the Hell in a Cell match. It almost ruined other Hell in a Cell matches because it was unbelievable the danger that in particular Mick Foley put himself through, and the horrible injuries that he did to himself in the process. And I think it would be remiss of us potentially to ignore the sacrifices that he made by not voting it the greatest Hell in a Cell match of all time. It is something that made me genuinely think growing up, oh, you can die in this match very much. And I've never felt that with other matches where they've done dangerous things. Look at people jumping off the top. Shane McMahon jumping off the top of the Hell in a Cell. I never thought, oh, he's going to die. I just think, oh, look at him go.
Sayonara, sucker. I bet you that was fun.
Whereas Mick Foley falling off, I mean, Undertaker thought he'd killed Mick Foley at one point, and you can see why, and you can see it in his face, and he's horrified and terrified, and yet Mick Foley still gets back up, and he's got a tooth in his nose. It's. I think it is the most iconic Hell in a Cell match almost to a fault. So I think you have to vote it the best. You simply do. That's my argument.
Well, it is a good argument, and I would say that all of them are good arguments, which is what I tend to say many times over on this show because I have to heap praise while only awarding a point to one. Luke, I'll come back to you. Tell me why The Undertaker vs. Mankind is not the best Hell in a Cell match.
I will defer that question to Sullivan by asking him, what show did that take place on?
That took place on King of the Ring, 1997.
Oh!
Was it not 97?
It's 98.
Fuck! I don't know. I was 7 years old.
Disqualified.
I was a baby.
I want him out of here.
Yeah, it's not my fault. I'm a baby.
I think a more important facet of that is probably the fact that the things that are so iconic about that match are accidents. So it's how can it
Beautiful
be the
accidents.
best match going, because it was not scripted that these things would happen. We are watching the aftermath of a car crash.
I mean, the first one was supposed to happen. He was supposed to go off.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
And he was supposed to go through. It's just the chair wasn't supposed to follow him down and smack him in the face.
And don't you think that the bit in American Beauty when the paper airbag or the plastic bag is flying through the air, that's a beautiful accident, and that one film won Oscars. So
To more seriously answer the question,
we don't talk about that.
it's like Bruno.
It's not like a lot of WWE actually.
I mean, actually, if you go by Twitter, people don't want to talk about Mick Foley at the moment either.
Order.
To more seriously answer the question that you posed as to why I don't think it is the best Hell in a Cell match of all time is actually something that Sullivan said within his argument as to why it should be, which is that it did sort of ruin Hell in a Cell matches for a number of years afterwards. Because Hell in a Cell matches then less became about the structure itself, about the dangers of being within the cell, and more it became about, well, how do we get out of the cell to get up top for someone to fall off? Mick Foley even became a victim of this himself when he tried to effectively redo a spot at No Way Out 2000 with Triple H, and he did a lesser version of it. And I think over time we've just seen people not be able to do what they did in that match, because you should not do what they did in that match. And that has actually hurt a lot of matches afterwards. Rikishi had the same problem at Armageddon 2000. So I think for that reason, it is not, because it did ruin Hell in a Cell matches for a number of years afterwards, which the 1997 one didn't do, actually, because it was...
Yeah, but you can't criticize something for being so good that it makes everything else seem bad.
You what? Not with that attitude.
That's not what the question is. The question isn't which Hell in a Cell match was best for the Hell in a Cell stipulation, Luke. It was which is the best ever.
But I think therein lies the case of the point, Sullivan, is because I think the Hell in a Cell match did lose a lot around the stipulation because of spots like what happened at King of the Ring 98, what happened at Armageddon 2000, arguably what happened at Hell in a Cell 2014 with the Seth Rollins Dean Ambrose one, where they had to both do a bump off there because they feel like, well, we have to do this because that is what the stipulation. But the match itself is also inside the cell. And when you talk about that Mick Foley Undertaker match, no one ever really talks about the stuff that happens inside that ring.
No, but there's a bit of thumbtacks and that's nice.
I can't remember anything that happened inside the match with Shawn Michaels and Undertaker. I just remember the Kane bit.
Yeah, I just remember the Kane bit as well, actually, to be honest.
No, well, that's actually inside the ring, so X in your face.
Well, we've got a good transition here from one match to another. So I'll go to Sullivan first. Sullivan, why is Shawn Michaels versus The Undertaker, the first Hell in a Cell match, not the best one?
Well, one of the best things about it is somebody who's not even in the match. Kane. Kane is the most iconic bit from that whole match. He is the most iconic bit from the whole match. Yes, he is. It's his debut. That's what everyone talks about. I didn't even know. When did Shawn Michaels fall off something? Did you say at some point? I don't even remember that.
He falls off the cage.
Don't even remember that.
He stamps on his hand and he falls through.
I've watched this match. I don't remember it whatsoever. The most iconic bit is all about Kane, and it happens. That's separate.
It's a match overshadowed by a debut.
And
it's also the debut of a stipulation, and yet people are talking about Kane.
Yeah.
I don't know. This sounds like user error. This doesn't sound like a problem with the match at all. This sounds like a new problem.
Well, I'm just saying that, it's the first one, yet it's overshadowed by the very next, well, it's technically not the very next one, because there is one on Raw in between, but the very next pay-per-view one, then, it's overshadowed very quickly.
I take your argument, and I do agree that the Kane debut, that's got to be Kane, is what a lot of people remember for. But also, that includes Kane walking down and ripping the door off the Hell in a Cell. The structure that they had put over is like, oh my god, the only way to get in this is if Sergeant Slaughter unlocks the door. But Kane comes down and he rips it off.
So he immediately undervalues it.
Yeah.
Actually,
forever.
No, the strong. The strongness
No
of
strong.
the strongness of the stipulation puts over Kane.
Very good. Very
I'm sorry,
good.
can you get points to for the word strongness?
Grammar.
Come on! The strength, Luke!
I was right the strongest. I was right the first time.
Yes, yeah. Mark Henry, the world's strongest man.
We'll go back to our middle answer here.
Fix the audio.
Well done, Adam.
Again, that'd be great.
We're going to do it all from the beginning.
Yeah.
Remember what you said, guys.
Yeah, we'll do the whole thing over again.
Oh,
Goodness me.
oh God.
We'll now loop back around.
No further questions.
Loop back around to the Usos and the New Day. I'm very glad that nobody on this list chose one with a red cage, so everybody gets a little bonus point for that. The New Day and the Usos. Luke, why is that not the best one?
It's just not.
Sullivan, why is it not the best one?
Well, yeah. The thing is that it's just not. It's not though, is it?
Well,
But
yeah.
I don't think you can have a tag match be the best Hell in a Cell.
I don't know if I go that far. I just think it is a match that if you were to ask 10 people, name me 10 Hell in a Cell matches, which would give you 100 answers.
You could also see people do exactly that on last year's episode of Survival Series, also here on partsFUNknown. Link is in the live chat.
But if you ask 10 people to name 10 Hell in a Cell matches, I don't think this one would come up in any of the 10 people that you asked. As good though it may be, and it is very, very good. But so's Xavier Woods versus Bobby Lashley. Is that one? Or
That is one of them.
Yeah, like another good match, but it's not the best one, is it? Just because people remember that it happened.
Well, then does that not undermine the entire format that we're doing if there are objectively true answers?
That's a good point.
Yes.
I don't believe that there are objectively
Exactly.
true answers.
So if it's not the best, if it can't possibly be the best match, then what are we doing here, folks? Why are we doing this format? I ask you, if we have to accept that The Undertaker versus Shawn Michaels might be the best match because it tops other people's lists elsewhere, if we have to accept that The Undertaker versus Mankind is the best because it might be on somebody somewhere's list because there's some homogenized version of wrestling knowledge, then this whole format is crap!
Thank you for watching our wonderful new format, Gripebombs. I appreciate all the support my lovely new show has gotten.
But also the work rate's really good in this match comparative to all the other ones. I think this is the other thing, is like it doesn't come with this. Your two matches that you're offering up have a lot going for them that they had exceptional advantages before the bell even rang. Yours is the very first. Yours had a huge moment that was, an accident. People are going to always remember those grotesque pictures of what happened to Mick Foley. That is always going to be talked about. There is no right for the New Day versus the Usos to be so good in terms of where it was placed on the card, what was happening at the time. It was just thrown together, and yet those guys went in there and they put on a stellar match. And that, I think, is something that honours the idea of doing a Hell in a Cell match.
And I do not disagree with that. And I think actually your argument that the work rate is really good is actually a very good point to make about it, because I think it could be argued that perhaps the work rate within the match actually does. I don't suppose you could say that New Day and Usos are better than Shawn and Taker, but that's a debate for another show. What I would say though is where I think the match falls down is not just that it's not going to feature in 10 people's 10 top 10s or anything like that. It's that I don't think it uses the stipulation, and that's actually not a fault of the four lads in the match. That is just a fault with the company at that point, which was the Hell in a Cell match was just a box. It was just a box that came out because the pay-per-view said so. It was a good match within a Hell in a Cell, but does not mean make it a good Hell in a Cell match.
No, but they used the cell in new and innovative ways throughout the match. The cell does become a part of the match. Yeah, it might just be a box that's trapping these two teams in together. But the fact that there is no breakout moment, there is no scaling the cell. That was obviously not something that they were really supposed to be doing, particularly at that time. And also there was stuff coming up later in that specific show, I think, that was going to happen. So this is all to further, you are within limitations having this specific match, and the cage is limiting, but also the rules around probably what they were allowed to do is very limiting, and yet they kept finding avenues to explore new things to do that would add to the drama of the match and make them feel like they were genuinely locked in there until this could be decided. There's not even a pinfall for 15 minutes.
But I think what works against your pick, and actually works against yours as well, is that it's, again, I come back to the importance of the stipulation, is that when Shawn and Taker went inside that Hell in a Cell match, the match and the feud required that level of match. Undertaker and Mankind, I think it's announced on the Raw before King of the Ring 98 that it's happening. It's not like, oh man, these two, they've got to be locked inside this cell. And even with New Day, it's not like, oh man, they've got to be locked inside the cell. It was just, it happenstance that it was that match. This one, it needed to be Hell in a Cell.
I think we've gotten pretty good arguments from everybody for their choices. Luke, we'll start with you once again, and a closing argument for Shawn Michaels versus The Undertaker.
It's the first, and it's the best.
And Laurie?
It's a different pick.
And Sullivan?
It's the greatest match in a Hell in a Cell of all time, definitively.
Definitively. There's no such thing in this show.
Definitively.
That's the point of this show.
I use the word definitively, no believe me.
I strongly disagree.
So, our first round I'm bringing to a close now. We do have a couple of Ultra Chats in as well. Make sure you get your Ultra Chats in to WrestleTalk.com/PFK. We'll be reading out all of the ones that are $5 and above before the end of the show. So make sure you get in your thoughts on either any of the topics that we're debating or any of the arguments that are given by our fine contestants as well. They'll get read off here in just a short while. I don't necessarily think that the teardown arguments of the other matches necessarily took any of those matches down in my estimation. That may be because these are three very good matches, and it is difficult to throw stones at very good matches. So, that being said, it comes down to the strength of the arguments themselves. So I think I have an idea of who I would like to go with, but I'm going to read an Ultra Chat or two before that to let everybody in the audience vote in a lovely little poll set up by our mods. Ket has donated to say, for the sake of giving a different answer, that's the Laurie strategy, Brock Lesnar versus The Undertaker at No Mercy 2002. It was a brutal match, and it made Lesnar look like more of a beast than he already was. Great work from both men. Boy, if you want to see maybe the bloodiest Hell in a Cell match of all time.
Watch people just slipping around on the floor for ages.
It's
To Mr. Bean, slipping around.
genuinely...
Bambi on ice.
It's a
blood.
bit unsettling. You want to talk about a crimson mask. Undertaker gets hit with those stairs, and his face is just red. Not even like a trickle, nothing like that. No, it is a sheet.
I think it's difficult to watch that match. It is,
Yeah, gets over the stip. Love that. And Heiko says, I jumped from Taker Mankind to Usos New Day in the poll because it brought excitement to the burnt out stip and stands for the planned activity in the match. Kane overshadows HBK and Taker Mankind is 2 spots.
Oh, I think I disagree with, obviously I disagree with the first point there. But I think there is more to Taker Mankind than just 2 spots. I think that's the 2 spots that people remember, but I think there is other stuff in there.
Yeah.
Thumbtacks.
Yeah, thumbtacks. Remember thumbtacks?
Terry Funk's in that match.
Yeah. What's he doing there?
One of the greatest wrestlers of all time. Gets chokeslammed out of his shoes.
Oh, you're all right there, Mick. I'll tell you what, I'll take a choke slam so you can just recover for a little bit. Is that all right with you? I think you got a tooth there in your nose.
I forgot his shoes fall off. It's one of the-
Oh, Mick, I think you're real sore.
So, with that being said, I am going to go to the poll here in our lovely chat, see what they think. They have a strong opinion about this here round. I'm not going to let that influence my decision, however, because I do think that there were a lot of very good points made. And
Conscious bias thing.
this is both conscious and unconscious bias. Because I do think that somebody actually gave what I believe to be the strongest argument as for the quality of the match itself, not necessarily the expectations or the fallout and the legacy of it, but the match itself, I think, was put over the best by Luke. Shawn Michaels versus The Undertaker at Bad Blood 1997. And these, again, were all very good arguments, but I do think that, Luke, you made a very good argument in that this was a stipulation that it paid off this story very well. And I don't think that the other matches weren't in the same category as that, but it wasn't made in the arguments necessarily. Like the Usos and the New Day, that was a multi-month long feud that culminates in the big Hell in a Cell match, and I think is one of the better uses of a Hell in a Cell match, actually, from that kind of time period, to blow off one of the bigger rivalries of the year. Definitely the best tag rivalry that WWE had seen in quite some time. But I think, Luke, you made a strong argument with the debut of Kane and that being iconic. I don't think that necessarily takes away from the match itself. I think all of these things all work together to make a match the biggest story that it is. Because, again, it's sniveling little dick Shawn Michaels eking out a win to become the #1 contender for the title because of someone else, and that fits his character so perfectly. And all of these sort of things. I think it all plays together very well, which is all part of the argument that Luke had made. So, round 1 will go to Luke. He advances to the final to defend his title one-on-one with, potentially, whoever is the winner of our second round. Now, this is the very best talker in wrestling today. We just had our latest edition of TLC go up over on Wrestle Talk, where we talk about the best talkers in wrestling of all time. That is maybe a little bit too broad for this. Maybe I want to give some chances for different answers here on this here show. So, this episode and this round are both the sponsored round by Smack Talk Showdown. Ooh. Hopefully now you'll be able to see a proper ad for them and a proper ad read from me without any technical or audio issues. This, of course, is the only party game that not only encourages Smack Talk, but requires it. It is a very fun game played by many of us on the channel, and they have very graciously sponsored this episode of Gripebombs and this round. This round is brought to you by Smack Talk Showdown. So please enjoy this ad, and when you are finished, make sure you go over and click the link in the description below to get your copy of Smack Talk Showdown and use the code word GRIPE at checkout to get $5 off your entire order. Check out this very fun game.
Introducing Smack Talk Showdown. Fulfill your dreams of becoming a professional wrestler. You and your friends adopt the most wild personas, give outrageous promos, and feel the burn as you tear into the mic and into your best friends with Smack Talk Showdown. This is the only party game where smack talking isn't just encouraged, it's required. Watch as friendships are tested, alliances are formed, and laughter is guaranteed. It's time to wrestle with words. Get ready for the ultimate smack-talking experience, Smack Talk Showdown. Let the smack-talking begin. Visit smacktalkshowdown.com, second edition available now.
Neither of the lights are on, but thank you to Smack Talk Showdown. I can't see it, it's over there. Thank you again to Smack Talk Showdown. Of course, this is a game that everybody should be playing. This is a game that would make for a very fun addition to any pay-per-view watch party. Anybody that is going to be watching any sort of wrestling, having folks around. This is a very fun game to be playing. The game has over 500 name segment and smack cards, and they're all unique. If that's not enough, there's an expansion that you can buy with it as well that's also available on the website. So make sure you click the link in the description below or in the live chat to take you there and use the code word GRIPE at checkout to get $5 off your purchase. Thank you again to Smack Talk Showdown for sponsoring this here episode. Now let's get on to the sponsored round as we just try and decide who is the very best talker in wrestling today. Very important, today doing a lot of the heavy lifting there. Also, just for the sake of letting everyone know, the poll had Sullivan's choice of The Undertaker versus Mankind at 58%.
Whoa, thank you. Thank you.
There you Googled the answer.
Thank you for telling the truth.
Now, Sullivan, since you are the people's chosen champion,
yes,
why don't we start with you? Who is the best talker in all of pro wrestling today?
Now, we've got a lot of great talkers in wrestling history and indeed today. But one thing I think that a lot of people who are great talkers in wrestling are missing is gravitas. And I think there's only one person who I really feel embodies gravitas in a way that no other manager or indeed wrestler can embody, and that is Paul Heyman. Whoever Paul Heyman is with, no matter what, they're always going to be elevated somewhat by Paul Heyman being with them. And his work with the Bloodline was fantastic. He's actually a great actor as well, separate to all that. He has some of the best reactions to some of the craziest moments. He brings up everything that he's involved with, and he can go from, and you see it with the Bloodline, actually, the Bloodline storyline in general. He went from this person who's like, yeah, I'm going to sort you out, to this sniveling coward where he's terrified all the time, and he's, now begging for help. He is somebody who makes you feel and makes you also fear in a way, about the wrestlers that he's representing. In a way that no other talker can. No other manager can, and I don't feel like any other wrestler can either. He is, I think, probably the best manager of all time, and which is a separate question, I understand, but I think that has to, that for me, the fact he's still doing his best work at this point in his career is unbelievable. Thank you.
Very strong choice to open us up. Laurie.
Hello. Well, a lot of wrestlers rely on shticks to get over as talkers. A lot of wrestlers rely on catchphrases and things they might do. We've got LA Knight with his yeah, and we've got CM Punk with his I hate all the establishment stuff. What a load of nonsense. And there's one name that never really comes up, I think, in these conversations about best talkers in the business, and that's Sami Zayn. That's somebody who has managed to be the heart and soul of one of the greatest wrestling storylines that there has been in the past 10 years. Probably one of the greatest wrestling storylines ever. And Sami Zayn, because of his both acting and talking ability, managed to leverage that and be the actual soul of that storyline, to the point that he overshadowed Cody Rhodes, who many other people think is one of the best talkers in the business currently and probably one of the biggest babyfaces. But Sami Zayn out babyfaces babyface man. Sami Zayn is an incredible, he's so good on the mic because he is so capable of making himself sympathetic. And I think his kind of like underdog, his overall underdog energy is why he never comes up in these conversations, because it's too easy to go, well, Sami Zayn's just doing Sami Zayn stuff and everyone kind of already buys into the underdog. But it's so hard to sell an underdog. It's so hard to make people genuinely root for somebody who has, through the matches that they've actually been allowed to have, or the runs that they've been allowed to have, has been beaten down to the point of like nobody necessarily believes in them. And Sami Zayn has the ability to get on the microphone and get in the ring and say stuff. And I think also we have to include talking here is not just your promo work. It is your backstage segments. It is your acting in scenes backstage. It is also the things you are saying in the ring while you are with other wrestlers. And Sami Zayn nails every single bit of that across the board. He made every moment of that Bloodline story important. He was the heart and soul of what was going on there. And he elevated everyone else around him by being the thing that they kind of like the story revolved around. He was the kind of his ill-fitting in that story, and his kind of awkwardness as a character and the way that he chose to talk was both, it leveraged him being funny, like he was popping the other guys while he was doing it, and similarly he was also doing these really heartfelt moments where you genuinely believe that this isn't someone who's just talking in like wrestling parlance. This isn't someone who's just learned promo class really, really well. This is somebody who is genuinely coming out here and wearing their heart on their sleeve and saying what they genuinely believe. And then on the flip side, Sami Zayn, I think, is probably the best babyface in all of wrestling. But on the flip side, he makes sniveling dickhead heel work so well. This is someone who managed to land a gimmick in which he whinged. Like he managed to. I mean, he comes out and he's cutting these promos, and everyone's buying into it because it's funny to watch him come out and be this character. He is such a good talker, and once he wins the Intercontinental Championship and he has this whole run of being this like huge babyface as a champion, he's got these fiery promos. He can give it all on the microphone, and I think he's got such range that you have to put him in this bracket of best talkers in the business right now, because Paul Heyman is very, very good, but he does have, generally speaking, one speed. And like he has done some emotional stuff on top of that, but mostly he gives you that same energy for pretty much every single thing, and he's a big catchphrase guy. Sami Zayn doesn't really have a catchphrase going in his entire career. He's never really landed one. Instead, he just comes out and he just delivers.
Well, you don't think I'm the underdog from the underground is a catchphrase?
I really don't. Well, it's not one that people shout out with him. Is it? Like, do you know what I mean? It's not really one that people are like screaming. It's not the same as like doing the Paul Heyman, Brock Lesnar bit where everyone's singing along. You know,
I am not anticipating having to choose a correct answer among this to be a fun time because we're 2 down. And already I'm like, oh, these are all really good points. So, Luke, why don't you make my job harder and tell me who you think the best talker in pro wrestling right now is?
When we talk about best talkers, you and I actually were on the episode of TLC talking about this. It is about people that make you believe. They are people that make you buy into what they are selling. They are people who literally use the word promo to extend that out to promotion and make you want to see matches, make you want to see outcomes of those matches. And I don't think there is anybody on this planet right now better at that than the American Dragon, Bryan Danielson. Because Bryan Danielson is a man who makes you truly believe every single word he says. He had, 2 weeks to build his match with Jack Perry going into All Out. And in just a handful of words where he said, I'm going to kick your effing head in. And I wrote in my notes when I was reviewing, I was like, oh, I think he might. I think he is actually going to do that. He is going to kick that man's head in. Because he truly makes you believe what he's going to do. He had a bit of an uphill battle going into All In, I would say, because everyone was so into the Swerve Hangman thing. But in just like one promo, that show in Cardiff, he has this one promo. And all of a sudden, I was like, Hangman who? Who, man? They're talking about Bryan Danielson going for the AEW World Championship. And again, I'm going to kick your effing head in. And he is so good at that. Within that match itself, the All-In match against Swerve. Because you mentioned, it's what you say in the ring as well. He has the moment when Swerve is doing the yes kicks on him. And he is just staring down at his family, staring at Brian, staring at his kids. And Swerve's there, kicking him in the chest, yelling at him, like, you look at me now. And Bryan Danielson, through the power of love, stands up and just shouts at his wife, I love you so much! And that starts his comeback because he means it. It means so much to him and he truly believes what he says. And because of that, because he believes what he's saying, I believe what he is saying. I've never had more of an emotional connection to anyone than I have Bryan Danielson, and that is a lot down to the way that he talks and the way that he does his promos and the way that he carries himself within the ring through his verbalistic skills. I think the man is magic. I think he truly is a genius on the mic and is so good at conveying his emotions that make you truly believe what he is saying. It is not just scripted verbiage. He also managed to get over one word as a chance and got that over. And you can't, not everyone can do that. Arguably LA Knight did, but he also had to have a setup for it. And I suppose you could argue Jey Uso is also doing that pretty well. But
Steve Austin did that once upon a time.
Yeah, but no one likes that one. I don't think you can go back. I could chart the entire career of Danielson. I could go back to his Ring of Honor days. I could go back to his time as Daniel Bryan leading into the monster promo going into WrestleMania 30. But because we're talking about them now, I just wanted to focus on particularly the last 4, 5, 6 weeks of Bryan Danielson's run and just how gosh darn good he is at making... The best wrestlers are the ones who make you forget that wrestling is a staged art form. They're the ones who make you feel real. Eddie Kingston, I think, is another guy that I don't think anyone has clued him in that wrestling is a work. And there's part of me that I don't think Bryan Danielson truly knows that either.
Oh, like I said, you've made my job harder for me. But we'll stick with you, Luke. And I want you to tell me why your pick for the best talker of all time in that TLC episode, Paul Heyman, is actually not very good at this.
Okay, I would say it's because the question was, who was the best talker today?
When was the last time Paul Heyman was on TV?
Come on.
Yes, I don't think that's today, though.
Relatively recently, though.
I don't think that's today, though.
It's not like he's retired or dead.
Well, I think he might be.
No.
Well, I mean, on that SmackDown, Roman Reigns was looking over his shoulder for him. I think he's a Force Ghost now.
No, he's not Force Ghost. You know he's not Force Ghost.
He looks over there and he sees him standing next to Obi-Wan Kenobi and Yoda.
Why wouldn't they bring him
Waving at the
back?
end of the film.
They're definitely going to bring him back.
Yeah, I mean, they probably will do, but that's not today.
This is ridiculous.
I will say, this is ridiculous. And I'm not... You could have said Eddie Kingston despite being injured. You could have... I'm not taking this as genuine criticism.
I'm doing
Paul
this for
Heyman
entertainment
doesn't
jest.
cut promos this week.
He's not doing it right now.
He's not doing it as we speak.
He's not doing it today.
So, Laurie, perhaps I'll go to you in that case. Tell me why Paul Heyman might not be the best talker in wrestling today.
Well, Paul Heyman is a very good talker, but that is Paul Heyman's job. That's his only job. His only job is talking. He doesn't even have to think about doing the wrestling on top of that. Like, I think you got to think of the barriers for the other guys. The other guys have to go out there. They've also got to put on a good match. They've got to do it while also normally having been dropped on their head first. And then they have to start talking. Then they have to come and do something. They've got to wait for a guy who's going to jump them from behind. Paul Heyman comes out. He's got all the time in the world to make his points. And he makes very, very good points. But like I said previously, Paul Heyman does really have a shtick. And he sticks to that shtick. And, you know, he has done other stuff outside of that, and they have been very, very good moments. But I think there are plenty of other people in that same storyline who have had those same moments, and if not, enhanced moments, especially in the Bloodline stuff. But yes, Paul Heyman does add gravitas to people, but he has one job, and he does that one job, and he's never really necessarily fit outside of that box.
I even think if you're looking at that Bloodline storyline, you know, that he's been very involved in the last few years, I think you could possibly make the argument he's like the fourth most important person in this storyline. Yeah. I think you would definitely put Sami Zayn above that in terms of the talking. Roman and Jay.
He's set dressing.
He is. I think at this point in time, he has become a little bit of set dressing. That's not to take away from any of the talking that he has done previously. I mean, One Night Stand 05 is one of my favourite promos ever.
Yes.
I think one of the strengths of Paul Heyman is that he is a legit cult of personality. And like that again is people sort of buying into it. But I think that he has lost some of that magic over the years. I think that he was once that guy. But I think Laurie is right. I think he has become more shtick than he has being what made Paul Heyman truly magic. I think he was one of the best talkers. I do not think he is the best talker today.
All right. And Sullivan, will go to you. And we've gotten your pitch for Paul Heyman, and we'll get a closing argument from you shortly. But I need from you why Sami Zayn wouldn't be the best talker in wrestling today.
Sami Zayn is fantastic. In the Bloodline, absolutely brilliant. My favourite part of that storyline, I would even say. Absolutely amazing. But I would say outside of that, I have never really been that moved by a Sami Zayn promo all that much. Don't really remember that many Sami Zayn promos all that much. Since the Bloodline, I feel like he's just been sort of swimming around. And been very popular, but it's sort of like he hasn't really moved on since then. That would be my feeling on Sami Zayn. A year ago, when he was at his height, I'd be like, yeah, 100%. I can't defeat this argument. Laurie's done it again. Look at his lovely eyes. But now I think that at this point that heat has gone. In the, that excitement about Sami Zayn and the way that he was performing has dissipated somewhat. And I don't know when I think the last time I cared about a Sami Zayn match was Elimination Chamber.
Strong. Luke, I will ask you the same. Why not Sami Zayn?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's kind of echoing a lot of what Sullivan just said then. I think that Sami is a good talker. I don't think he, at this present moment, is making people truly believe that he is the underdog of the underground. I think he was doing that previously. I think if you go back to his NXT days, sure, I think that he was doing some really, really great work there. I think you can certainly make the argument for the stuff he was doing in the Bloodline. But I think in the last year or so, I don't. Again, much like Heyman, I think the magic has slightly gone. And I mean, like Dan Layton pointed out to me, and I actually can't unhear it now. But he does a lot of the big breath thing, where he's like, "I am the Intercontinental Champion," and it's actually like, I don't know, it's a bit much. Settle down there, hoser.
Hey, now, you don't get to use that word. I get to use that word.
The magic has worn off when they're doing these huge moments where he's walking into the arena and everyone's going nuts, and they've made up a whole like walk-in tracking shot to follow him. The magic hasn't worn off in the slightest. Do you see the reaction to him coming out in Saudi Arabia? My God! And he gets on the mic and talks, and everyone goes crazy. What world are you living in? You watch too much wrestling, frankly. If your problem with Sami Zayn is he breathes funny, like.
I'm just saying I think it's a shtick. and you know, and sometimes it's not a shtick.
On that note, Sullivan, why not Bryan Danielson?
I can't wait to hear this one.
Look, I think that the majority of the feeling towards Bryan Danielson is more because of the actual story that we know of him as somebody who WWE wouldn't favour and did sort of overlook again and again and again. And was it actually down to his promos that made us feel that way? Or was it just down to the feeling that we had around him? Was it really down to just how we projected our feelings onto this man who did this? And that was lovely and really good. And we all love doing that. And it's really nice.
I think it's created by the promos.
Well, I don't remember a single one of them.
And I also think "I'm going to kick your head in" is not a good line. I don't like it. And he's used it before. And he used it before and it didn't land. And he's just come back round to it and now people are like, yeah, I like this. I don't know. I don't get it. I don't buy it from Danielson.
But then he does kick people's heads in. Yeah. He actually does deliver on the promise. Unlike a lot of things in wrestling.
He advertises
and then delivers.
He does.
But this is not about who's the most factually correct talker. It's about who's the best talker. Like, because otherwise it'd just be whoever comes out and says, "I'm Bryan Danielson," and he is Bryan Danielson.
If he came
correct, there you go.
If he came out and said, "I'm Bryan Danielson," I'd be like, I believe him.
Yeah.
I would too.
Yeah,
I am a professional wrestler.
If he came out and said, "I'm CM Punk," I'd be like, I think he is.
Yeah.
I think he might be, you know.
I think Danielson's in-ring work does a lot of the lifting for his promos, and I think like his sheer he is one of the best wrestlers alive today. He is top 5 guaranteed, and I think that does a lot of people. You project a lot into promos, I think, depending on how you feel about the person who's delivering them, and I think Danielson rides on that a lot because you can believe what he's saying because you do know it's going to be a good match because Bryan Danielson's in the match.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily think that makes him a good talker. I think it's he can do less than other people and it land with he's not even really stretching himself 90% of the time.
Well, I think we've got plenty of arguments to go around for each of our 3 choices. Sullivan, I'm going to start with you and we'll work back down the line here. Just a closing statement as to why Paul Heyman is the best talker in wrestling today.
For me, if you didn't have Paul Heyman, then I don't think the Bloodline storyline would have maybe even happened in the same way that it would have done, and it wouldn't have been as good. Nowhere near as good, because he started it all.
Laurie?
For me, if you didn't have Sami Zayn, then the Bloodline story wouldn't have been as good as it was. But also, I think also this is a story of consistency. This is somebody who manages to get over whatever he is doing through the power of his words, and and it has been every single facet of the wrestling journey that Sami Zayn has managed to land, and he is a brilliant talker. Clearly, crowds respond incredibly well to Sami, and other wrestlers respond really well to Sami talking. Like he manages to pop the other guys consistently with what he's doing.
And Luke?
He made people care about a Jack Perry match.
Jack Perry catching strays on this screen. Well, that'll bring our second round to a close. Thank you again to Smack Talk Showdown for sponsoring our second round. I will be checking the poll. I have kind of been taking a peek at it throughout, and they're certainly leaning one way. Before I get to my selection, as I have made one, I'm going to read more of the Ultra Chats that have been sent in. Make sure you get your thoughts in on any of the choices given or your own choices for any of these rounds by sending them to WrestleTalk.com/PFK, and we'll be reading out all the ones that are $5 and above before the end of the show. The Luna Corva says, Sami Zayn, favorite wrestler of all time. People write him off because of how human he feels. He doesn't need to be loud or use catchphrases, but he can make his hometown hate him as a heel and make people 100% support him as a face. Julio Mendoza says top 5 talkers, no particular order from Julio. Number 1, he says no particular order, but then numbered them. So I'm going to read them off and assume that this is in an order. Number 1, Heyman. Number 2, CM Punk. Number 3, this is definitely not of today, Shane Douglas. Do the chuckle. Horrible. The Rock at number 4. Number 5, CZW John Moxley. And an honorable mention, John Cena, specifically from 2014 to 2019. Wouldn't be my honorable mention.
What's going on there?
And also, AJ Lee, which I think does deserve a mention.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
And Heiko says, I admit 2 spots is a gross oversimplification, but it was totally worth it for the panel's reaction and the Terry Funk impression. Leaning Heyman on this one, tough choice, arguably the strongest field of talkers ever right now across the industry. That's bold.
That's a bold thing to say.
The 80s and late 90s might have an argument to be said, but isn't it nice that the art of promo ability is making a resurgence after like 15 years of here's your script.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I think you do have to factor in that some of the best '90s guys are still coming back and doing promos.
Yes.
So that is also a thing. Like we have had The Rock recently, and Stone Cold does every so often pop back up and do something. So
how long's Heyman been around?
Yeah.
You know.
You mentioned there is just the the last 15 years of ... John Cena promos. My favorite thing about Shane Douglas, by the way, is when he was a backstage interview with TNA, he would start all of his interviews going, "Ooh, I'm standing here." Every single time with an ooh.
Who does he think he is?
The franchise.
All right. So he says. Anywho, we're going to wrap this second round and go into our final round, as I am actually in agreement with our here poll. At 58%, it's Paul Heyman.
I've consistently got 58% both times.
Wow.
It's very impressive. I was very split between Paul Heyman and Sami Zayn here. I think you two in particular. Sorry, Luke, but I have long bullet-pointed lists of good points made by 2 people, and then he's makes you believe, and then is good in the ring. I was like, that is also true, but unrelated. But when it comes to the 2 other options here, I did find it incredibly difficult to choose between them. And I think Sami Zayn is an underrated choice for a great talker, for sure, where he is, unless you're Pete, R.I. Pete, that is once I got to pop off screen from Rich.
Just for some clarity, once again, he's not dead.
He's not dead, no matter what I say.
And no matter what I've done.
What Sullivan puts on his Instagram stories, Pete Quinnell is very much alive and well.
Unless you're Pete, putting him at number 5 on your TLC list of talkers all time. I don't see many people talking about Sami Zayn in that kind of way, but when you look at, the Usi thing and popping Jey Uso and Roman Reigns mid-segment, doing the same backstage, the Bloodline stuff, and all of that sort, he does do a very, very good job with whatever he's given, able to play multiple roles in that. However, I ended up going Paul Heyman, due in no small part to, again, the rest of the panel making good points in favor of Paul Heyman as well, because I think Sullivan as well did a very fantastic job in arguing for Paul Heyman. He does have a gravitas. He is a large part of the reason why the Bloodline story has been successful. He has elevated most everybody that he works with, Curtis Axel aside, but it is like I say best talker in wrestling today, and I do appreciate most people using modern examples of their work, but you do have Paul Heyman with examples brought up from a little bit, further back into the past, where he is still capturing that same sort of feeling that the feeling that incites an audience in a positive or negative way. He's been doing that for so long, and it is that consistency that I think has really won him through. Everybody here has had fantastic careers, no doubt, but Paul Heyman, just as he was on TLC, the best talker in wrestling today. Which brings us to our final round, as Luke Owen now prepares to defend his Gripebombs championship against Sullivan Bo Brown. Now, this round is going to work a little bit differently than our first two. It will play out exactly the same way in the arguments and the back and forth. However, the voting will be different. You, the fans at home, will be getting 1/3 of the vote here. So make sure that you vote strong and right in the poll down below, because that will count for 1 of 3 votes. Laurie Blake will get another 1/3 of the vote.
Oh, no, I've emotionally checked out of the competition.
No bias here. And I, of course, will be retaining my 1/3 of the vote.
I'll give you a watch.
All right.
Bribery.
There we go.
No, I just happened to be giving him a watch. I've owed him a watch for a long time.
I've needed a second one.
He's wearing a watch right now. So with that being said,
That watch is going to be going off like mad as well, because Sullivan gets nothing but booty calls all day. It's going to be going off in your pocket something crazy.
I'm finding it quite comforting.
with that being said,
I might sit directly on it.
our final round. We've seen Mr. WrestleMania. We've seen Mr. SummerSlam, Mr. Money in the Bank. Who is Mr. Hell in a Cell? Who embodies this stipulation for now and evermore? Luke, you're the defending champion. I'm going to go to you first. Who is Mr. Hell in a Cell?
The Undertaker. He was there at the start. He was there at what someone on this panel might have said the most iconic Hell in a Cell match of all time. He even murdered the Big Boss Man inside Hell in a Cell. R.I.P. the Big Boss Man. I think if you're going to look back at the Hell in a Cell gimmick, in fact, actually, one of our other panelists on this said that the match felt it was tailor-made for The Undertaker, as the Devil's Playground, as the Devil's favourite guy in The Undertaker. And he is a guy that is just like, if he announces Hell in a Cell, he's inside Hell in a Cell, that means you know something gonna go down. If it's against Brock Lesnar, if it is against Edge, if it is against Mankind, if it's against Shawn Michaels, if it is against Shane McMahon, you just know it's like, Undertaker's going to do something rad inside this ring. Undertaker got a good WrestleMania match out of Triple H because of a Hell in a Cell thing. And getting a good match out of Triple H at WrestleMania is not an easy feat. And Undertaker managed to do that because he is just so good at making this magic and making this stipulation feel like it's something huge and something spectacular and something that is dangerous. That's I think the key part of my argument, and it kind of ties back to what I said in the opening round as well, is that the stipulation kind of has lost a little bit of meaning over the years. I feel like that Triple H with his booking started to bring some of that back with the Punk-Drew feud, but I think even when it meant kind of nothing, Undertaker made it feel like it was still something because he had the legacy attached to him and this match stipulation. I think that Triple H might try and say that he's the guy that, had the best Hell in a Cell matches, or he was Mr. Hell in a Cell, but man, it's The Undertaker. He's the guy. He's the guy that makes Hell in a Cell really, truly mean something.
Sullivan, your choice for Mr. Hell in a Cell to combat The Undertaker. Who could it possibly be?
Undertaker has quantity, of course, but there's only one person who has quality, and that's Mick Foley. It's Shane McMahon. No, it's Mick Foley. It's Mick Foley. Now, he's only had a few Hell in a Cell matches. I believe only 3, where he had a tag Hell in a Cell. And
there's one more on Raw you're forgetting. But
is there another one on Raw as well? Yeah, and then there's a No Way Out against Triple H, and then, of course, the very famous one, the King of the Ring. But he always tried to push the boat out and do new and different and more dangerous, admittedly, things every single time he did it. And he made Hell in a Cell much more terrifying as a prospect than any other wrestler who has ever wrestled in the Cell. I think when you're facing Undertaker in Hell in a Cell, you are scared of the Undertaker. When you're facing Mankind against Hell in a Cell, you're afraid of what is going to, or Mick Foley, you're afraid of what he might do to his opponent, and also himself. You're thinking that there's a strong chance that somebody could be injured for a very, very long time, or maybe even die. Whereas, in all of the other Taker matches, I don't feel like you think that. You think, oh, it's going to be a good match, for sure. But that fear of something almost awful happening, not necessarily down to accidents, though there were some accidents in that one against Undertaker, and they're iconic accidents, beautiful accidents. Happy accidents. Happy accidents. We're happy about it. He's happy about it. But also because of the things that he is willing to put his body through on another level to any other wrestler who have ever wrestled in that Cell, and that's what the Hell in the Cell is all about. That's what I'm going. Mick Foley.
Well, you've got two people now who are completely intrinsically linked with Hell in a Cell and each other, which I find very interesting to now try and pick apart. Luke, I'll go back to you first. Regarding the Hell in a Cell matches that Undertaker and Mick Foley have been involved in, and particularly the one that they were in together, what about those matches would make you think that the Undertaker is like the takeaway of that Hell in a Cell match? If you're looking at Taker versus Mankind, I suppose that what this is asking in this sense is, why is that an Undertaker Hell in a Cell match as opposed to a Mick Foley Hell in a Cell match?
I think it's an excellent question, and brilliantly asked as well. Look
at Luke, he's sucking up because he's panicking, he's stalling for time.
I think you may want to look at that one and say, like, oh, sure, that is the Mick Foley Hell in a Cell match. He's the one that's got the iconic shots in there. He's the one who goes off. There's that great line from Jerry Lawler after he goes through the cell where he goes like, that's it, he's dead. And, it's got all the Terry Funk stuff in there as well. But there's the images around that. It's the Undertaker standing aloft that Hell in a Cell, this big looming 7-foot tall figure that he is with his lifts. But to kind of quantify that, I would look at Armageddon 2000, which is the 6-pack Hell in a Cell match, which actually I wanted to have in my opening round because I love that match, because I think it's awesome. He has a promo segment in the middle of that show where he is kind of like just walking around the Hell in a Cell, just about like all the things that he has done inside that Hell in a Cell, and he talks about the Shawn Michaels match. He was like, I grabbed Shawn, I raked his face, and I felt his blood pour down. And he talks about that Mankind one. And he talks about how he took his body and he threw it off. And I'm like, whoa, yeah, you did do that. Sure, Mankind took the bump, but he is the one that threw him off. Now, promo is so damn good because he is the guy who's just like, yeah, sure, I'll make you famous. I don't know a lot of these things, I'll make him famous. But he is the guy that made them famous in those matches.
Well, you made the point that I was hoping that you would from that question, and therefore I will pose the same question the opposite way to Sullivan. Why is that match, the Taker and Mankind match at King of the Ring 98, why is that the Mick Foley Hell in a Cell match as opposed to Undertaker's Hell in a Cell match?
Think about every single image from that match. Are you thinking more about Mankind, or are you thinking about Taker? Are you thinking about Mankind when he's got his tooth through his nose and he's smiling to the camera? Are you thinking about Mankind as he falls through the table? Or are you thinking about Taker standing aloft? I think you're much more likely to be thinking about Mankind just about to fall through the table, or Mankind going through the cage, or Mankind being walked off and then coming back into the match again. Even Mankind going through the thumbtacks. All of the iconic moments, I think of Mankind first and Undertaker second. It is for me, Undertaker does a fantastic job doing what he does. There's no doubt about that. But that is a Mankind match where the Undertaker does everything he needs to do, but Mankind goes above and beyond.
Also a very good answer. Sorry, Luke. Please go on.
Oh, no, I mean, I was going to say, I don't think that Sullivan is particularly wrong in there, that is a Mankind match, but it is just one match. You know.
Well, that then poses the question that I was going to ask next. Sullivan, I think, very rightly and well put at the beginning, says that Mick Foley has quality over quantity, perhaps. And Luke, I would like your counter argument in that, because again, Mick Foley only has 2 big Hell in a Cell matches and a couple other ones on Raw, but like 2 big, memorable Hell in a Cell matches that, rightly or wrongly, have led us to that being a contender for Mr. Hell in a Cell. Undertaker has been in Hell in a Cell matches many, many more times over than that, and what would your counter argument be that perhaps his repeated use of the cell has led to some not as good matches from time to time as well?
If you're going to put him in there with Big Dave, you may not get a 5-star classic.
That match is good. Fuck off.
And I was about to say, but Undertaker makes it a 5-star match. Because he is Mr. Hell in a Cell, and he makes these matches awesome. No, so Foley, if you look at the 2 Hell in a Cell matches, and I think for the sake of argument, you would look at those 2. I don't think you would look at the tag match and the one that they do on the other one they do on TV. I think you would say that it's like, there's the 4 spots within those matches, because it's being thrown off the cell at 98, it's going through the cell at 98, it's falling off the side of the cell in 2000, and it's going through the cell onto the crash pads in 2000. And that's it. Sure, iconic moments. But I think when you look at those other 2, they feel like lesser versions of the first 2. They feel like imitations of the first 2, especially the going off the side of the cage, because it's not being thrown off. It's more like the Shawn Michaels one, where, I mean, actually, the Attitude Era podcast said it's a bit like the Lion King, where it's like, long live the king, and he falls off to the side of the cage. And then when he goes through the cage and sort of falls through the mat, it doesn't feel as impactful as the first one did. So even though there are only 2 matches, the second one of those feels lesser than the first, which kind of means then that really Mankind has only had 1 Hell in a Cell match, and that is the one at King of the Ring 98. And while I think that is, Mankind's match, I don't think that makes him Mr. Hell in a Cell, whereas The Undertaker has had that moment and many other moments afterwards.
Sullivan, I'd like your counter argument to that, and the Undertaker's quantity, perhaps, over the quality of Mankind's 2 matches.
Well, with those 2 matches, I understand your point, and I would agree with them that second match is definitely lesser to the first. And I think actually, in a sense, it's actually informed by the fact that he'd hurt himself so much from the first one that he couldn't do those same spots again.
It's the reason why it's his retirement match.
Yeah, absolutely.
At just 34.
It's a just in case.
And if you took that match, though, in 2000 in isolation, you might think that would be... If 98 never existed, I think we would think those are iconic moments in general in Hell in a Cell. Anyway, what I would say with these moments, the fact that even the lesser versions are still iconic in their own way is amazing to me. That over 24 years ago and 26 years ago, these 2 matches happened, and we still think about them today. There have been many different spots in loads of different Undertaker Hell in a Cell matches that there are whole matches that I couldn't name you a spot from out of all of his other Hell in a Cell matches. And then you go into sort of like, facing Shane McMahon. Now, we can all say, I think fairly clearly, it's not Undertaker's fault necessarily. The Shane McMahon match was pretty boring in my book. But I'm not putting it all on Shane. I'm not saying it's all his fault, but it is like 90% his fault. But he's had a lot of matches that are just sort of like not bad, but just not iconic. And it's a question of whether you have the brightest stars the brightest stars shine for the shortest time. And these are 2 amazing matches. Comparatively to a body of work that is largely really good, and the best one of which, in my book, is probably the one with my my personal pick for Mr. Money in the Bank, Mr. Hell in the Cell. I'm sleepy.
Can you imagine Mick Foley walking around with a briefcase with his logo on it?
It would have his lunch in it.
Yeah. I can't imagine Mick Foley with a briefcase, full stop.
He's never been to work. I know he wore a tie.
Mankind looks like he'd carry around a briefcase.
Right. If I may, are we just going to forget the Triple H Hell in a Cell match?
Talk about it.
With
Sure,
Shawn Michaels
argument.
as the referee, like arguably one of the best WrestleMania matches of all time.
It's very good.
That's the Undertaker inside a Hell in a Cell match, because it when they were setting that match up, I think the match they had before the year prior, while some people do like that match, I think it's fine. But it does inform and it sets up the fact that we need to do this inside the Hell in a Cell. This is the end of an era. And you do it with Undertaker, you do it with Triple H, and you do it with Shawn Michaels, these three guys who are so intrinsically linked to the Hell in a Cell. And Taker is the focal point of that. And when he kicks out of that tombstone pile driver, it is so good. And the people believe it, because I think people thought the streak was going to end there. I think people genuinely believe the streak was going to end there, because the Undertaker is that good. And the kick out of it is so much more great because the Undertaker is so good at it. So you got that match that's awesome. Then the Shane match is I would review that match as being better than you'd think. Given that it is Undertaker versus Shane. And it has got what hadn't been done for a while, which was a big Hell in a Cell fall off the side of the cage. And again, it was because it was the Undertaker that's in that match that you had to do that spot. It wasn't because Mankind was in that match. It's because the Undertaker was in that match, and he's the guy that throws people off the side of the cage, whether it is Mankind or whether it is Rikishi at Armageddon 2000 or Shane McMahon.
But obviously Mankind can't be in that match. His bones are made of dust now. In fact, it's such an iconic Mankind moment. Michael Cole said, "For the love of mankind."
Undertaker is essentially Trigger's broom. He's had different legs, he's got different hips, he's got different arms.
The ship of Theseus.
Exactly.
I was just going to say that. I watched the fucking clip from WandaVision of Vision talking to himself about the ship of Theseus this morning. That's wild.
They always call it like the ship of Theseus, but I'm like, no, I'm British. It's Trigger's
Trigger's
broom.
broom.
That's the British version of that tale.
Well, I think we've had some very good arguments for both sides. I'm going to allow Sullivan first to give his closing argument as to why Mick Foley is Mr. Hell in a Cell. Please, take it away.
It has been well over 20 years since Mick Foley's 2 matches in Hell in a Cell, and they are still 2 of the most iconic matches in Hell in a Cell of all time.
And Luke?
It has been over 20 years since The Undertaker made Mankind look really good inside the Hell in a Cell, and people still remember it to this day. And then he had a bunch of other really good matches inside Hell in a Cell, and the stipulation basically became his stipulation. He is literally Mr. Hell in a Cell.
Boo! Shut up!
Again, if there's an objectively correct answer, why are we doing this?
I don't think there is an objectively correct answer to this
I don't
one.
think there is.
You say that,
what are we
Laurie.
doing?
Who did you choose for your potential answer to this?
Shane McMahon.
I always think there's
Shane McMahon is someone who, I think the argument here is the Shane McMahon is someone who saw what happened to Mick Foley and thought, I want a piece of that. If that doesn't put you in the front running to be Mr. This specific thing, then, and he did it once and it fucking hurt, and then he was like, I'll do that again next year. It's insane.
It is mad.
Has he had more than one Hell in a Cell match?
Yeah, Shane.
Kevin Owens, yeah.
Kevin Owens, yeah.
He had to.
Yeah.
So, objective right answers aside, I was surprised nobody chose Triple H.
Well, Triple H is definitely up for it. Definitely up for it.
The only person who's going to pick Triple H is Triple H.
You say that. That Batista match is very good. And the Cactus match. Anyway, that's not my argument to make. I'm the host. So that being said, I'm bringing this final round to a close here. We've got our lovely poll, which I'm not going to look at yet because this could be one that would inform my decision. We have one final Ultra Chat here. Ding, 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 ding. We are nearly finished. I'm going to read that out. We can all deliberate a little bit, and then we can decide the winner of Gripebombs for this month. Heiko says, 2 icons, 2 spots, totally a tie. Unrelated, I make ice cream for a living. What are y'all's favorite flavors?
Oh, that's a...
Honestly, I'm a mint choc chip guy.
I was going to say mint choc chip.
I love
mint choc chip's very good.
It's good.
But I like a salted caramel or a dulce de leche.
Sullivan, do I have some ice cream for you? You just got to come to Canada to get it. There's salted caramel truffle ice cream from the best ice cream shop in the world that is in Northern Ontario, and it will blow your mind.
What are we doing here?
Is salted caramel really the flavour of ice cream, or is it salted caramel is a thing that is already tasty and you've added it to ice cream? Is it truly the ice cream, Sullivan, that is delicious, or is it salted caramel as a concept? With a mint choc chip ice cream, there is not really much mint choc chip other stuff.
There's not.
There's After Eights, there are Aeros. Mint choc chip ice cream is a delicious cul-de-sac. Can I win this one at least?
You're making a hell of an argument for
I
it.
win this one at least.
He's got my vote.
It's a really good argument. It's a really good
Because if
argument.
you say mint, you might just think toothpaste, but no.
Mint choc chip
mint choc chip,
specifically.
yeah,
It's
ice cream.
become its own thing.
Actually, yeah, you could even say that maybe After Eights and Aeros came about because of Big Choc Chip, maybe.
Yeah.
My favorite flavors of ice cream are difficult to come by in other places because they're mostly from this Kawartha Dairy ice cream in Toronto and the Greater Ontario area. I love a blueberry cheesecake from there.
Very nice.
In general, if I'm just going and getting like a tub of Ben & Jerry's or whatever, chocolate chip cookie dough has always been my classic go-to.
Also like a raspberry ripple.
Oh, classic.
Yeah,
Rum and
classic.
raisin.
Yeah, rum and raisin.
Ooh, rum and raisin.
And Neapolitan.
Neapolitan's great.
Yeah.
Neapolitan's
Underrated.
great. Rum and raisin, the choice of a pervert, but that's fine.
I heard Dharma rum and raisin.
Well, back on track in that case.
Well, thanks for the watch, Sullivan, but my vote's going with Luke.
no.
A hell of a thing to say to one of your judges, essentially.
I know, it's just saying, not that you're a pervert, just that a pervert would choose it.
It's a common phrase!
Well, before we get to our final choices again, I want to say thank you one final time to Smack Talk Showdown for sponsoring this episode. You can get $5 off your full order by going to the link in the description down below and using the code word at checkout, GRIPE, GRIPE, to get $5 off your entire purchase. Make sure you pick up the game Smack Talk Showdown, where it is the only party game where Smack Talk is not only encouraged, it's required. Let's take one final look at our ads from the people at the lovely and wonderful game Smack Talk Showdown, and then we'll be right back with the final definitive answer and your winner.
Introducing Smack Talk Showdown. Fulfill your dreams of becoming a professional wrestler. You and your friends adopt the most wild personas, give outrageous promos, and feel the burn as you tear into the mic and into your best friends with Smack Talk Showdown. This is the only party game where smack talking isn't just encouraged, it's required. Watch as friendships are tested, alliances are formed, and laughter is guaranteed. It's time to wrestle with words. Get ready for the ultimate smack talking experience, Smack Talk Showdown. Let the smack talking begin. Visit smacktalkshowdown.com, second edition available now.
So thank you once again to Smack Talk Showdown for sponsoring this here episode of Gripebombs. Make sure you get your copy of the game by clicking the link in the description in the live chat and using the code word GRIPE at checkout for $5 off your entire purchase. Now, we have had our arguments in favor of The Undertaker. You have had your arguments in favor of Mankind. I get one vote, the chat gets one vote, and Lori gets one vote. Lori, would you like to go first or last?
I think chat should go last.
Chat can go last?
You go first, I'll go second.
All right, I think that is fair.
Let's let chat decide.
Let's let the chat decide.
If it's a tie, obviously.
Yeah, obviously. That's why I was trying to build the drama, perhaps. Go one way or the other. But regardless, I think that both of you did very well with this assignment. You both picked very, very good, strong answers and made strong arguments in favor of both. However, I think a stronger argument could be made for one of them. And that's why I am leaning towards the other. Because I do think that, on one hand, Mick Foley has attached his name to this thing. And perhaps if a bit more emphasis was put on how his legacy has built up the Hell in a Cell since it's happened, where his multiple stints as Raw GM and such has resulted in him being inserted back into Hell in a Cell because of his connection with it multiple times over, a special referee and the one who will announce that stipulation, whether it's as the commissioner in 2000 or later in 2016 with Charlotte and Sasha. 2014 even. He's the one that's brought out because he is linked to it. I think a little bit more emphasis could have been put onto that. So, for that reason, I have gone with Luke and The Undertaker as Mr. Hell in a Cell. Laurie.
Pervert comment notwithstanding.
I wasn't saying you were a
there
pervert.
there was a deal with a watch made.
They balance each other out.
I do. Or this is it. I'm being objective. I objectively got given a watch, and I think. Well, I think the thing is for me, it's a case of yes, Undertaker has been in a lot of Hell in a Cell matches, but I do think that Undertaker has been overshadowed in a lot of those matches by a moment, by a thing, by Kane turning up, by somebody falling off the cell, be that Mick Foley, be that Shane McMahon, whatever it might be. Undertaker he's the constant, but not the through line. It's that kind of thing of like, it's somebody else puts their body on the line or does something huge that makes him look good. And I think for overall, one, you've got to give props to the man for putting his body and his life on the line for this match, to sell this gimmick in a way that it hadn't been sold yet. It would not be around today, I do not think, had Mick Foley not taken those bumps. And three, it wouldn't be so revered as we would be thinking, if Mick Foley hadn't done what Mick Foley did, we would just be like, big cage. Like, it just wouldn't have the drama, the gravitas, all of those things baked into it. You would just think, that's a big cage, and it's, what's the point of that? It is the threat level that he took and elevated it to that I think does make him so synonymous with the stipulation. And I think, for that alone, he should be Mr. Hell in a Cell.
So the two on the desk are split. 1 vote going to Luke, 1 vote going to Sullivan, which means it is all in the hands of our fine viewing audience. And with 54% of the vote, a very, very close debate, the winner of Gripebombs Episode 3 and new champion is Sullivan Bo Brown.
Yes!
54% of the vote saying Mick Foley.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
you.
Thank you.
Thank them.
Thank you.
You won all 3 polls.
Thank you. I won all 3 polls. Yeah.
The champion of the people, clearly.
I'm
not going to claim bias.
Well, also I chose the most basic answers.
Sometimes that's all it takes.
And I chose last.
So screwed me over in the first episode.
You won the first episode.
Yeah, it's because I'm really good.
Well, surely you will be back to defend that championship, Sullivan. And perhaps this won't be the only time that you and Luke will face off in debate warfare. Yes. As for today, thank you all so much for joining me. Thank you for your choices and your arguments. And thank you all at home for watching. Thank you for your Ultra Chats. And thank you to Smack Talk Showdown for sponsoring this episode. Make sure, of course, that you go to the link in the description of the live chat to get your copy of the game and the expansion and use the code word GRIPE at checkout to get $5 off your purchase. We will see you again next month where we will have no more technical issues. And until then, this has been a very fun debate. I have been Tempest. We will be back with more content here on partsFUNknown very shortly. So make sure that you're subscribed and enable notifications so you are always notified when it goes live. We'll see you next month. Jam that jam.
Jam that jam.
Jam that jam.
I'm just going to put this watch on.